Guru Sam, The Mastery of Nothing, by James Lee Walker II. Forward. Currently, I am occupying in solidarity with my brothers and sisters on the lawn at 600 East Trade Street, Charlotte, North Carolina. I have not had time to finish my book. I will, however, at some point, complete it. I am recording this a little after Christmas, 2011, at my parents' house in Rock Hill, South Carolina. Again, my book is not completed. This, however, is a recording of the first 20 pages. The foreword will most likely change. Chapter 1. Chapter 1. The sun glared, and the crowd cheered, to the delight of the birds, who believed it was lights, camera, action on another big community sing-along. Alice smiled and clapped. The 12-year-old was perfectly dressed in a yellow spaghetti-strap sundress, which matched the field of dandelions and a general cheery mood of the 20 or so spectators who stood in the Veterans Park. The entire scene completely clashed with our hero. Sam sat on the ground with his face in his hands. It was a hot day in late August, and Sam wore his gray fedora and oversized black trench coat. Knowing the state of the day before he left the house that morning, he also wore his khaki shorts and a white A-shirt. He believed that it was so hot because of the annoying loud crowd of cheery citizens crowding around him. "It's pretty hot today for a trench coat, isn't it?" A young boy leaned down and said to him. "Yes, it is," Sam replied, and stood. Sam grabbed the hand of little Alice, who was standing next to him, and had tried to hug him. Sam put a stop to that silliness and grabbed her other hand. It was abrupt, and Alice made a shocked look. Sam turned her away from the crowd to face him. He looked down and smiled. "Is everything okay now?" he asked, the corner of his right lip twitching. "Yes," she said. "If it wasn't for you." Sam had already let the girl go and had begun to walk away, his coat completely failing to waft in the wind like a majestic cape. It hung low and heavy, dragging across the grass and the flowers Sam stomped through with his black combat boots. He stood and pulled up his gym socks almost to his knees. "Thank you, Sam," he heard people yell, after hearing a whisper of 1, 2, 3. Sam walked in dazed circles for an hour before finally getting back to his office. He sat on his couch, put his hat over his eyes, and fell fast asleep. Sam dreamt of balloons. He was naked and trying to push his way through a white room tightly stuffed with multicolored rubber balloons. He didn't pop one. At the end of the room, there was a brown leather couch, just like the one he was already sleeping on. He decided sleeping on it would be the best way to end this metaphoric patronization. "I get it," Sam yelled in and out of his dream, and slept for another 5 minutes. There was a knock at the door. Sam sprang from the couch like he just realized it was covered in fire ants by one of them biting him on the upper inner thigh. He went to the door and reached out until his hand bumped into a stomach. It was either a stomach or a stomach-like door. Realizing that it must be the first one, Sam said, "I don't get it, okay? Explain it to me." "You left your door open all night," the man said. He handed Sam a very thick envelope and walked away, scratching his head. Sam released his tight squint and relaxed until his eyes reluctantly let the two bright lines of light widen. Yes, that was a man with a stomach and an envelope. The man got into his car, waved, and drove over Sam's mailbox, leaving it lying sideways in the street as he swerved away. Sam walked away from the door and plopped back on the couch. The envelope was full of money. He'd count it in a few hours to find that it contained $3,000 cash. That was his fee for finding Alice. He'd received a call on his unlisted number by a distraught Mrs. Powell. "Is this Guru Sam?" "This is Sam." "Alice is missing. My daughter is gone. Please, please, please find her, Mr. Sam." "Mr. Sam?" "Please, I'll pay anything." "Who is this?" "Amanda Powell. Amanda Powell. I'll send a man round in an hour or so." "A man round?" "Thank you." The woman hung up, and Sam went to the store. It had been a very stressful day. He'd just changed his number. He'd just, in fact, changed phone services, gotten a new phone, and received a new number that was nothing like his old one. People kept calling him, asking him to solve their problems, and he had no idea why. This wasn't the part that upset him. Who were these people, and how did they find him? Sam loved solving other people's problems. He really did. Before he was so apt at being useful, he was obsessed with attempting to be so. He knew there were $3,000 in the envelope exactly. People had been sending a man round every day for the last week, exactly. It was Monday afternoon, and every day since the last Monday had started with a phone call from a person in peril. There was the husband on the overpass who was about to jump. Sam had left his house after a random call from the man that he randomly came up upon as he walked to the store for cigarettes. "You came," the man said, weeping slightly. "What? Oh, Jesus, what are you doing?" Sam yelled, throwing his joint over the railing, running over, and feeling much too high to deal with the situation. The man, Riley, called Sam a little before the wife called. The man called and told Sam that he was going to kill himself. The wife called 3 minutes later to tell Sam where Riley was. "Do what you can," she said. "I'm not sure what you want me to do," Sam said sincerely. He thought about the scenario of talking a man down from a suicide jump many times in his head. But this was a request. This was actually happening. There was a woman asking for the life of her husband to be saved, and all that Sam could think to say was, "I'll need $1,000. The man, who had a powder blue paisley tie over a white shirt, stood in black slacks and barefoot on the railing of the overpass, with his toes curled over the edge. "You came. I don't want to die." "Then don't jump." "All right, I won't," Riley said, stepping down. Almost immediately there were reporters, police, and a crying woman holding an envelope with $1,000 cash inside. Sam scowled and dredged past her, through the crowd, and past the police who were murmuring something about him. He continued to the store for cigarettes. He'd smoke them all within the next 6 hours. He grabbed the money from the woman on his way back. Some other woman had said something about nobility under her breath as Sam refused the envelope, so he quickly snatched it. "I'm not noble, and being so has nothing to do with nobility," Sam yelled as he slammed his front door, which was a block away from the overpass. The crowd cheered. Sam sat down on his couch. He smoked 20 cigarettes. He fell asleep. The next 7 days was more of the same, with missing kittens, domestic disputes, and all manner of situations in which Sam was the only one who could help, apparently. All starting with calls from victims and ending with any amount of money that Sam requested. Sam returned from the store this evening and sat down with his Alice money, afraid to go to sleep. Like the day of Riley the Jumper, Sam had gone to the store and walked past a little girl in the park yelling, "Help! I'm lost! Someone help me!" Sam walked over to the girl, and as soon as he was within a few feet of her, a gong went off inside his head. "Damn it," he thought. Well, it was more like, "Gong, damn it." Now there was a pattern. Now when he reached the same moment again, he would recognize what it was. The game was afoot. He'd get a call about it. And then he'd save the day without any effort at all. It was an interesting joke. He'd laughed about it. But now it was becoming torture. Since he was a child, playing the private dick had consumed him as an activity to guide his persona. Sam was that guy, but only in theory. He'd gotten an online detective license. He daydreamed about showing up to crime scenes and pissing off the cops. "Damn you, Sam," they'd say. Sam would chuckle with his fist over his mouth as if it were a cough. That was about it. Sam had never thought about the details. It was a fantasy, and he was bored. He was bored and depressed. He didn't like to leave the house, and if he had to, he would walk and think. He would think till he was exhausted, and get lost in a flurry of thoughts so muddled that his mind became blurry. Then he would walk, and continue walking, for hours. He always knew where he was. There was no blind trance-like state. He didn't go around bumping into things. It was walking meditation indeed, but Sam was too pretentious to ever admit being into Eastern philosophy. He would think to himself that he would not presume to know anything about Zen aside from quoting Alan Watts. But when Sam saw a lake or a tree, he'd scoff at it, as if he had a mastery of understanding this thing we all live in. He didn't like to think about it in any terms or words, because Sam was worried about seeming like a know-it-all, even in his own head. Things in the universe that existed as individual was a concept that Sam thought was as trivial as... Well, Sam found nothing trivial, either. The fact was that Sam was a 30-year-old child, bored with living, after exhausting his quest to understand it. He didn't quest. Sam sat and walked. He was relatively informed, had no extensive knowledge of any particular subject, and lived off of his website which sold science fiction memorabilia. Socially, he was awkward. The people in his neighborhood barely knew him. He lived in a suburb in a nice house with a white picket fence for a year now. His mother had left to live in France. Sam, drinking coffee at the breakfast nook table, choked a little when he saw his 66-year-old mother Pam stomping into the room. She was wearing her pink butterfly pajamas and carrying 2 large bags. She dropped him on the floor and danced over to him. She kissed him on the head and put her arms around him. "I need a ride to the airport. I'm moving to France." "Why?" he asked. "I want to learn French," she replied. Sam stood and gulped down the rest of his bitter hot coffee. He set the mug down and stared at it. He loved his mother. He tried to think of something else to say because he thought he should say something. He stared at the pattern in one of the placemats. They were rectangular, with red, yellow, and orange patterns. There were diamond shapes in the center of all the more square shapes he noticed before remembering what he was doing. He let go of the mug and grabbed the keys, while looking at his mother's face and nodding. He picked up the bags and went to the car with them. And to his surprise, Pam followed right behind him in her pajamas and white fuzzy slippers. It had rained, and he knew the bottoms of her slippers were getting stained. He wanted to say something about that, but instead he opened her door and put the bags in the car. On the way, they talked about the progress of independent spaceflight contractors as an alternative to using Russia. Then they were at the airport. Shortly after, Sam leaned against his yellow Jeep, smoking. He pulled over on his way home from the airport at a coffee shop. "Roar," he said. He was thinking about the fact that he had no idea what to do now, over and over again in a variety of different ways, all the time knowing that he was just killing time. He went in thinking to himself that there was nothing wrong with killing time. He bumped into the CD rack. As he picked up the 3 that fell, he decided to buy the jazz. At the counter, he bought an American large coffee, and then decided that he didn't want a CD, and how lame it was he even thought of buying it. "Can you buy it for me, Sam?" Terry the barista asked. She smiled with a head tilt. Sam could see that she was only kidding. It was a sort of joke that was natural with their day-to-day exchanges. "Sure," Sam said, and bought it for her. The next thing that happened is something that Sam probably doesn't recall. Nothing happened, really. And that is why he probably wouldn't remember. He sat down facing the door, watching the people go in and out. He sipped his coffee, and thought about Terry listening to the CD while she cleaned her kitchen. The music suddenly went from alternative to jazz. Sam smiled and bobbed his head. He forgot what he was thinking about, or more so, he began thinking about something else. He didn't try to remember. Suddenly, he felt 3 inches off the ground. He didn't try to hold on to this feeling and eventually forgot all about it at some point before he left, waving at Terry. That night last Sunday, he made dinner. He took a shower. He slept in his bed. These were things he rarely did in a single evening, especially sleeping in his bed. He rarely ever did that. He slept deep and wasn't really thinking about anything. Rare. The next morning, it began. Riley called.